All right, what's going on, guys? It's Silent, and welcome back to another video. I don't know for sure if this video is going to go up on the second channel or if it's going to go up on the main channel, because this is a video that I've watched about 5 minutes of so far, and I think that it's going to be a really good video to make a topic on. I wanted to do a react video to this just primarily to help spread the word of what these people are trying to preach. This is the third or fourth video that I've watched now. The video is titled "Gaming is Now for the Rich," primarily for the fact that game prices just continue to increase. They do not continue to go down. You may have noticed that over the past couple of years, the gaming market has kind of climbed. For the most released like AAA title games have started to release at like $70 to $80 as opposed to the $59.99, the $60 that they used to release at. And that's what this guy right here talks about. And so we're going to go ahead and listen to what he has to say about it and then put our own opinions in between.
Imagine being blamed for not buying enough when they're the ones that are making everything too expensive to buy. How many of you guys have been sitting around asking, when is this going to stop? It's now got to the point where the price to just live, let alone even buy a video game, is getting out of the reach of damn near everyone. And now we have PlayStation raising their prices for the second time in less than a year, $100 across the board. And this is coming off of the tail of other price increases that we've seen already throughout the entire industry. Nintendo, Xbox, PC gaming hardware.
I'm going to be completely honest with you. If in the event that a video game hits a $100 price point, I am just skipping that video game. Because I physically, as an individual, like given my background and given just what I feel about video games, I cannot justify a $100 purchase in a video game, primarily because I know for a fact that whenever you purchase that video game, they are going to, on top of that $100, try to sell you individual DLCs, season passes, stuff like that. They're going to sell you individual microtransactions at 20, 40, 60, 80 bucks a piece. And that, to me, is just not how that is supposed to work. Okay, you sell the game, you can maybe get away with a couple of microtransactions, but you are not going to charge me $100 for every copy of the game and then turn around and charge me for every single individual piece of little content that you decide to drop for the game, as in DLC packs, season passes, and stuff like that. If I pay $100 for a video game, everything that is tied to that video game better be included in that $100 purchase, including the season passes, the microtransactions, and etc. Because I shouldn't have to pay anything else. That's a $100. That is a genuine $100 value. I should not have to spend $200, $300, $400, $500 on a game just to have the up-to-date experience that everyone else gets to have because they are more fortunate. Everyone is supposed to have an equal opportunity to enjoy the video game for what it is. This new mindset of these companies overcharging for these video games, that something needs to happen with that, because it is going to really push a lot of people under the table. And by a lot of people, I mean people like me who don't have enough money or enough resources to put in that amount of time or money into a singular video game for like a singular experience.
All these guys are sitting around, these executives, talking about how all these price increases are supposed to feel inevitable. Like it's just a bridge that we have to cross, but that bridge is now turned into an escalator that the vast majority of people cannot afford to get on. None of this is necessary. They're all lying to you. Every single one of them. They can try AI, they can talk about market headwinds, they can talk about shortages or inflation or whatever they want. But at the end of the day, all this is these are companies that do not want to take any accountability. They would much rather hand over and pass down their mistakes to you, the customer, and make you pay the cost of it.
Yeah, dude, that right there is like capitalism 101. Okay, you think your cheeseburger at McDonald's costs $5? They do not have to raise the price. Let's take like Activision, for example, for people who like Call of Duty and stuff like that. Activision, as a corporate, is a multi-billion-dollar company. Okay, they don't just produce Call of Duty, they also produce a bunch of other games and a bunch of other licenses to games. Let's look at their top CEOs. The top upper 5 people in Activision, add up what their salary is, their yearly salary. And I promise you it's in the tens to maybe even hundreds of millions. They do not have to make that much. I don't know who needed to hear that, but that individual who runs that corporation does not have to make tens of millions of dollars a year. It does not have to happen, okay? I promise you that he will be fine in the single millions range, and he could get away with that without charging you for a $100 video game. I pinky promise you. Same thing about the McDonald's comment that I made a minute ago, is your McDonald's cheeseburger does not cost $5. It never costed $5. It'll never cost $5 to make. They have it so streamlined and so it costs pennies. They're charging you $2.50 for a drink. They're charging you $4 for a large fry. Your whole meal comes out to $12 80 cents, and it costs McDonald's a total of $3.45 to produce that entire meal for you. Bag, cups, boxes, fucking delivery, it doesn't matter. Less than $5 for them, over $10 for you. That's how those CEOs make that amount of money. Underpay their employees, they overcharge for their products, pocket the rest. That's how that works. That's how that will always work, because it's corporate greed. And I'm glad that this dude is coming out and saying stuff like that, because that right here is exactly what he's talking about, but just in the gaming sense. So in the gaming sense, what he's saying is that, you know, they're using the excuses of like, oh, AI is causing a problem. There's like hardware shortages. There's worker shortages, developer shortages. They're just coming up with excuses. That's literally all it is. That would be like McDonald's turn around and saying that the reason that they're changing the price of their Big Mac is because there's a lettuce shortage. But out of all things for there to be a shortage of, it ain't that. What there is a shortage of is the person who is ahead of all of that. Their CEO, the main corporate CEOs, are all looking at their bank account and they're seeing tens of millions when they want to be seeing hundreds of millions, and they want to be seeing ones of billions. They really want to push for that number as much as possible because they've ingrained it into the fact that it's their job, even though they could retire tomorrow and never touch a fucking job again in their life. It has absolutely zero to do with AI. It has absolutely zero to do with anything else other than just straight up corporate greed. And I know I keep getting off on these tangents. I'm going to try to stop doing that as much as possible and let the video play out for the most part. But like I said, this was a video that I had a lot of strong feelings for, much like this individual does. So I'm going to voice my opinion where I need to, and you guys can kind of skip over parts if you want to throughout.
Dedication, they have taken our loyalty, they have taken our money, and they have done nothing but churn out garbage games. Now they want to blame us for it.
Yes. Dude.
This entire industry is just going to eat itself alive. Today, what I want to do is I want to talk about where these prices are coming from. How apparently now video games are being made for the rich. What that's going to do for society, and also how all of this is just going to end up in flames. Guys, 6 years. That's all it took for the price of video games, something that used to be one of the most accessible forms of entertainment, to get pushed damn near out of the reach of most normal people. First came the price increase up to $70 back in 2020, right when people were locked into their homes with not a lot of other options, and people just kind of forked the money over. Fast forward to today, and well, the last couple of...
That little line right there that he just said, forked the money over. That is exactly why companies keep doing shit like this. Because again, it goes back to the Big Mac thing that I was talking about a second ago, but just to quit talking about food because I'm a fat fuck, let's talk about the video game and use that as an analogy, right? Like he was saying there, they sold 2K, whatever the fuck it was, $70 instead of the standard $60. How did they do that? All they had to do was literally just change the price tag and see if people buy it. Turns out, a lot of people bought it. As a matter of fact, that was one of the better selling 2Ks, I think, of all time. Because now they know that they can get away with a $70 video game for selling the same thing to you that they sold to you last year, but with slightly better graphics and maybe a slightly better, smoother control scheme. Then other companies follow suit because they see that a marketing strategy from another individual has worked out so well for them that they have no choice but to try to line their pockets with that same amount of cash. What happens is they'll hit a point where players stop buying, and the decision to raise the price was actually a bad thing. In a company aspect and a profit margin aspect, it becomes a bad thing. And then what happens is they don't buy anymore. Consumers don't buy the product anymore because they can't afford it, and then they bring it back down, and then consumers buy it again. Okay, and then they bring it back up a hair. They can't buy it. They bring it back down. And it's literally, they're tiptoeing this border for the entire, they're doing it right now. They've been doing it for the past 10, 15, 20 years. They tiptoe this border of how much they can get away with charging you, because depending on how much you are willing to pay. And that happens with everything around you, by the way, which goes back to what I was talking about with like the McDonald's, Burger King. They all do it. It's all part of the scheme. It's all part of the pyramid. It's part of, and this isn't like a conspiracy theory. This is literally how like business works, right? Is they'll go so far, they'll charge you too much for it on purpose, just to see if they'll get away with it, just to see if they can sell you an overpriced product. Then they have like discounts on it and stuff like that. And then the next game that they release, they won't have it for that much. So say, for example, that they released a game at $100. A bunch of people throw out the flagship. They're off board. They do not want to purchase that game. It doesn't look like there's something that they want to play. Then they throw a sale on there, bring it back down to $60. A bunch of people buy it. A bunch of people play it. A bunch of people buy the in-game stuff, all of the season passes and everything. And then they make their money back. They wouldn't have lost any money in the first place. That's why they're comfortable doing that, because they have in-game purchases now. Millions of people spend a lot of money on. Like I said before, if it comes a day where a video game is $100, even GTA 5 or GTA 6, for example, if GTA 6 releases at $100, I will not buy it. I don't care. GTA is fun and everything, but like I'm more of like a single player. I play for the story and stuff like that. I'm not going to play the online aspect of it. Most likely, I am not going to pay $100 of it on top of the individual hundreds of dollars extra for DLCs and etc. that they're 100% going to sell with that game.
Of years have been nothing but constant headlines about prices going up again and again. Games hitting $80, even $100. Nintendo being the first to break the second of the 66 seals. Sorry, I've been watching a lot of Supernatural lately. Then came AI, then came the global trade tariffs. Then it was just a bunch of other convenient excuses that just made the prices go even further up. First, it was Xbox with Game Pass. Then it was Xbox hardware went up, not once, but twice. Then PlayStation raised their hardware prices.
I'm sorry to pause again, but also that's another thing that they figured out a way to charge you for. So not only are they going to raise the individual price of video games, but they're going to do this on purpose, specifically so they can sell you the monthly cost for their subscription, like Xbox Game Pass, PlayStation Plus, etc. That way you'll get access to these $100 games for significantly cheaper, but at a monthly cost. And in order to continue playing those games, you'll actually end up paying more than the $100 over time. As long as they can keep you hooked long enough, they get well worth their money out of it. So, and this is another big push that they're trying to make, is to get you hooked on just individual purchases of subscriptions, game passes, etc. This is their number one game plan. They're going to charge more for the game just because they can. But even in the event that that doesn't work, their number one game plan is to sell in-game custom stuff, game passes, downloadable content, etc. That is the number one thing that they try to push, because now you've already bought the game. Now they're trying to get you 100 times over for the next year that you play, so they can milk as much money out of you as possible, as if they didn't just milk enough money out of you for the $100 purchase of the game to start with.
Last fall, and now here we are, just 8 months later, again with PlayStation increasing the price of the PlayStation Pro to $899.
They're doing this not because of a shortage in technology or anything like that. First of all, they get all of their stuff regardless much under market value, because they buy in bulk. They buy straight from manufacturers. They get the cheapest of the cheapest hardware, period. Even if it's name brand stuff, even if it isn't innately cheap stuff, because they get first dibs on everything. None of that has to be that price. They did not have to make these price increases. They did it specifically just to see if it sells. And if it continues to sell, they will continue to have that price stay solid, and then even continue to increase it further until it doesn't sell at all anymore. And then I promise you they drop the price back down. That's literally how it works. Every time.
Which is basically brushing up against $1,000 after tax. PlayStation excused this on their website, saying, "With continued pressures in the global economic landscape, we have made the decision to increase the prices of PS5, PS5 Pro, and the PlayStation Portal Remote Player globally. We know that these price changes impact our community, and after careful evaluation, we found that this was a necessary step to ensure that we can continue delivering innovative, high-quality gaming experiences to players worldwide."
Let me fix that last sentence for you. We know that price changes impact our community, and after careful evaluation, we found this was a necessary step to ensure we can continue delivering an innate fucking enormous amount of money into our pockets, and pocket every single extra dollar that you give us as an individual CEO, corporate individual. And we want to personally thank you for overpaying for our products, so that way we can line our money with pockets and you people can stay poor as shit. Thank you, XOXO fucking Sony head CEO.
Man, guys, I don't know what to tell you. This is just global pressure. It's market headwinds. We just can't avoid it. I don't know what to do. It's AI taking over the world. It's tariffs. It couldn't possibly have anything to do with Sony funding over 12 live service games only to cancel half of them, burning hundreds of billions of dollars in the process. It could
not to mention the flops that they have
to do with the critical lack of first-party output, the 8 studios they've shut down over the past couple of years, the estimated $400 million they burned on Concord, or the fact that their biggest bet, Marathon, which allegedly was around $250 million budgeted before marketing, which means it's probably closer to $400 million all in, only managed to make over just $1 million in sales, and less than a month later is now averaging 36,000 players on Steam, a platform that makes up roughly 70% of their audience. Now, yes, I know that Marathon is some divine success that we just can't see, and that the developers are in it for the long haul, but I would also like to remind everybody that Highguard had a 1-year roadmap, so maybe
not only are you wanting to charge me $100 per video game, but you just create the worst slop, period. Like, I would rather buy an AI made game, like AI from the ground up. I would rather buy an AI slop game than pay for what fucking nonsense that you guys throw into these fucking huge, like, class action AAA titles, dude. Like, half of the games that have released over the past 4 years have been absolute dog shit. They are not worth the amount of money that they sold for. They do not have the replayability They are not good games. They just feel like a copy pasta, and that's one of the big problems with games that have come out recently. Is like Fortnite release, Overwatch release, Call of Duty release, Battlefield release, and now everything is a copy of those titles. Everything has a little bit of Fortnite in it now. Everything has a little bit of Overwatch in it now. Everything has a little bit of GTA in it now. Everything is just a fucking slop pile on of these different games. Nobody has a fucking original thought anymore. Everybody's just like, oh, that game did really well. Let me fucking copy it. Throw shit at it as much as I can. Fucking put Lego pieces together and then fucking put super glue and shit and staple my fucking puzzle together and then sell it as if I'm the first person to do it, you know? And, or, I put my specific little twist in there. Look at this guy. He's got a little thing on the back of his glove. He can fucking climb walls and shit. Wow, great. Fuck, yeah, wow. I haven't seen that before. Black Ops 3 did it. It's just every game feels like it's copy pasta. And they want to continue to charge people $100 for these video games. That doesn't track. Maybe if you were producing really high quality, like overall the statistics were those quality games were above and beyond what we've ever seen before, time after time, maybe you could get away with $100. But I haven't seen the track record for you to even think that that's possible. Personally, I'd love to whoever come up with that decision, because I promise you that they have fucking some kind of drug in their system. And I would know, because I've been around a lot of fucking drug addicts in my life.
Let's just come back down to earth for a second. Surely it is global headwinds and not the fact that their live service future is now hanging on a morbidly obese Amazon that lost a foot to diabetes. Now, while it might seem like I'm singling out Sony here, I promise you guys that I'm not, because all of these guys are making the exact same mistakes. Xbox, just the same. These guys have taken years of players' goodwill and support and money, and they have sacrificed it on an altar of live service, of subscriptions and games that nobody ever wanted to play. And now those same companies are trying to come to you, and they're trying to gaslight you into believing that these price increases are somehow out of their hands. Like this is just something of the weather. It's just the market. It's just this unfortunate reality that we have no control over. No. This is cost transference. This is them pushing accountability and the cost of their own failures directly onto the customer, all to keep their shareholders happy instead of just taking the hit, digging deep, and rebuilding their trust and reputation that they have destroyed. Their belief, or rather their faith in this matter, is that, well, the players are just mindless slugs. That the hardcore gaming audience that makes up 18 to 20% of players is just going to keep buying things no matter what. That their demand is basically inelastic. It's unmoving. It's never going to change. That they can raise prices, strip value, and make mistake after mistake, and that crowd is still going to show up and just fork it over. And for everybody else, well, the rest of the sheep will just fall in line too, because they're going to convince themselves these prices are temporary when they are anything but that. Because if any of this was about economic headwinds, then the prices would eventually go back down when those winds change, but that never happens. I'd like to remind people that we were once told that game prices would come down when the industry shifted into digital, but instead we just got the opposite.
No, prices don't come down, not in this economy. That's not a thing that happens anymore. Maybe like mid to early 2000s, it was respectable for a company to turn around and, actually decrease prices, but that is not business friendly, because all of a sudden, they're making less money than they were before, and that strikes a chord in these CEOs, bro. They fucking can't stand that shit. It eats at them at night. They can't sleep right. So, yeah, that's a thing of the past. Prices don't come down anymore. They'll gladly go up, but they will not fucking go down.
I'd like to also remind people that the $70 price increase didn't happen until lockdowns, when publishers and console makers were making more money than they were actually spending. They had more engagement, more investment that they ever had seen in their entire lives.
Yep.
Even when these guys are winning, they're still pretending like they're losing. Now, while I understand that people can and largely will just keep playing what they already have for now, the long-term effects of this are going to be brutal. We are already brushing up against $1,000 consoles, and we're not even in the next generation going to be even worse. That means that this is an industry that built itself on lower and middle income households, and they are now slowly cutting those people out of the picture. Gaming becomes a luxury, hardware becomes a luxury, and I genuinely do not understand how any of these companies can look at that and think that this makes any sense. This is your audience. This is the people that you need, and you're now making it harder and harder for these guys to be able to buy in at all. And, once you start pricing those people out, I don't see how this doesn't kill the console market in the next 5 years. PlayStation, especially, this is making even less sense. If their whole new strategy now is to keep their games off of PC, then shrinking your console audience is just going to destroy you. The only way that this makes any sense to me is if these guys have decided that they don't need ordinary people anymore. That wealthy households who now make up the majority of sales can carry the market. That these guys will just keep paying out.
Yeah, no wonder they make up the majority of sales, because it's already getting to the point where fucking poor people can't afford the games, man. Like, I'm already to the point where, like, fucking when I purchased, and this is a game that I enjoy, but Crimson Desert was fucking expensive, bro. I almost didn't, like, I legitimately almost didn't buy it because I could not, at the time, like, it was so much of like a random trigger pull in my head that I almost couldn't convince myself to buy it. And thankfully I did, because it's a really good game and I enjoy it a lot, but like at the same time, it is a lot of fucking money, dude. I'm pretty sure that game is $70. Again, man, it is just, it's crazy. The medium class and the high class are the ones that are primarily buying these games because they're the only ones that can, even now. You think that's going to get any fucking better when they raise the prices to $100 a copy? You've lost your goddamn marbles. Like, that right there as a statistic tells you, and I don't even think he's shown the graph yet, but there's a graph that he shows that literally shows you that, like, you know, people who are fucking making like over $100,000 a year basically are the ones who are primarily purchasing these video games and who are primarily making like in-game purchases, etc. It's because they're the only ones that can. Anyone who's making less than that doesn't fucking have the money to, you know, they want to. I promise you they want to, because they enjoy this shit. They like being able to fucking flex on people and buy these dumbass skins. I like doing it, you know, I'm not gonna lie. I think it looks cool. I like doing that stuff. But at the same time, we can't. We don't make enough for that shit. We don't make six figures a year. We don't bring home $3,000-$4,000 a month. I live paycheck to paycheck, man. No wonder it's like that, because it's already to the point. $70 for a video game is expensive as hell. $60 was pushing it. I'm sorry. I get heated. I really do. Because corporate greed is one of those things that, like, genuinely, it really pushes me to the edge, bro, because I know how much the money these motherfuckers have. And I know they don't need it, but they sit there and they beg for it more than anybody.
Now, we already know that lower and middle income households are buying less and less hardware, and more of that burden is now falling onto richer households, which is a much smaller market to begin with. Households making over $100,000 a year now account for more than half of all of these purchases.
There it is, right there.
Hardware.
53% of U.S. video game hardware buyers in Q4 2025 had a household income of over 100K, a record high, and up from 40% in Q1 of 2022. No shit. Because people who are in the lower $100,000 range, less than $100,000, $90,000 and below, cannot fucking afford the prices of video game hardware these days. Consoles, fucking graphics cards, CPUs, RAM, especially nowadays. This shit has gotten so out of hand that unless you make six-figure salary, you physically can't afford it, which is why that number has increased. It's not because all of a sudden there's more people making $100,000 a year. No, that number, if anything, has fucking significantly declined. But what has increased is the number of people who buy those things in Q4 who are making $100,000, because they're the only ones that can. Anyone who's making $70,000, $60,000 a year cannot go out and buy a fucking $400 or $500 graphics card upgrade for their computer. They can't turn around and buy a $500 or $600 CPU. They can't turn around and buy $300 fucking dollars worth of 16 gigabyte RAM.
The price increases that we're seeing is just going to push that threshold even higher, probably into the $150,000 or even $250,000 range when the rest of the economy keeps inflating. So now you're shrinking an audience from a little over 40% of the US households to 26, maybe even 16%. And the people below that just don't have any room to be able to close that gap anymore. Which brings me to something else, and maybe this is something that is just too hard for these guys to understand. Maybe they are just too ignorant to be able to get it. But the more expensive that hardware gets, the harder it is for players to enter, which means there are fewer people around to be able to buy games at all. And once that happens, these giant full production games that these guys are making starts making less and less sense. I want these companies to get better. I want these companies to shrink down, but I'm not hoping for all of these guys to die. But something like this does not give them a future. It strips one away. There's just not going to be anybody around to buy any of these games, and you're just going to choke out the hobby in a lot of cases. And if this is what's going to happen to the companies, imagine what's going to happen to the people that are already barely hanging on and using games as one of the very few things that they could still afford. I really just do not see how any of this works out in the long term. You know, one of the reasons why PC has been taking off over the past couple of years, getting bigger and bigger, is largely because people have been able to stretch older hardware a lot further than I think the industry thought that they would be able to. I just seen recently that over 50% of players on PC are still playing games at 1080p, which looks fantastic, by the way. I can attest to this. I was playing on 1080p.
Yeah, I was playing 1080p not up until recently.
Most of these guys are not chasing the highest end hardware. They're just chasing something that's going to last as long as possible. And also, they're probably not playing a lot of these AAA games anyway, but console's an entirely different beast. These guys don't have a choice. They're gonna get drugged forward whether they like it or not. The games start running like garbage, looking like garbage, or the console makers or the game makers just stop making games for them entirely.
Yeah, that was kind of always the thing that really is crazy. Is one day there will come a day where the PlayStation 5 no longer gets updates anymore. There's no longer games made for it. It just becomes a fucking hunk of junk. Like, literally, there will come a day. It's already happened with the previous generation of consoles. When was the last time you booted up a PlayStation 3 or an Xbox 360? When was the last time that you fucking turned on a PSP? And even then, even if you have booted it up, I promise you that there hasn't been an update release for the PlayStation 3 for, 10 years now? 8 years? Something like that? Close to? I mean, we're talking years. Xbox 360s. Years. They don't even make the consoles anymore. They don't make parts for the consoles anymore. You have to scavenge for parts in case anything ever happens. If Red Ring of Death, fucked. You're fucked. And then, like I said, eventually there will come a day where the same thing happens to the PS4s. The same thing will happen to the Xbox Ones. The same thing will happen to the PS4 Pros. The same thing will happen to the PlayStation 5s and so on and so forth. And they'll just continuously keep selling you something that only lasts so many years before they stop supporting it. It's the same sort of thing with like iPhones and, Galaxy phones and stuff like that. Like, it's the same thing that's going to happen to most of the PCs too, but at least with the PC, you can always upgrade, as long as it turns on, you can always upgrade, the operating system, you can always reflash BIOS, you can always do whatever you need to do with it, and it may not be able to run the most modern games, but it'll always be able to run the games that your PlayStations were able to run, that your Xboxes were able to run. It's just crazy that they're going to turn around and charge you nearly $1,000 for a console that in the next 15 years will just be like dust in the wind. You're going to use it to hold your door open to your bedroom when it gets hot in the evening.
Planned obsolescence, but it used to not be that bad because it was over a long period of time and it was still a relatively inexpensive transition to be able to get into, a more exciting transition to be able to make. But no wonder PlayStation has been having such a hard time getting people off of the PS4. People can't afford it, even more so now. That's why I'm struggling to understand what the broader strategy is here. Honestly, I don't even think there is one, because all this is doing is shrinking your console base, which is also then cutting off new buyers. And by extension of that, it's crashing your hardware appeal, it's killing game sales, and it's just dragging the rest of the games industry down with it. These studios are effectively like stores in a mall, and the console is the mall, but the mall just locked the doors.
Not only did they lock the doors, but they only specifically locked the doors to people who can't buy a ticket to get in, right? So a better analogy for what he just said, in order to get into that mall, you have to buy a ticket in order to get in before you can even purchase your console. That's the analogy that's made here. Because yes, they've locked it, but they've only locked it to a percentage of people that can't afford to get in, of the people that can't afford to just buy the console, to buy the game, etc. So basically what they're doing is they're excluding the poor and promoting the rich, which is the reason why the video is titled the way that it is. Eventually, they're going to look at those graphs if they raise prices to 100%, and it's going to be like 75% of households that make over $100,000 are the ones who are buying these fucking shit video games now, because they're going to be the only ones that can. Literally. There's going to be a very small percentage, and I guarantee you that households under $500,000, the fraction is going to be almost zero of amount of people that buy a $100 video game that make less than $50,000 a year. It's going to be almost zero, even though those are the individuals that you really should be marketing towards the most, because that's like the majority of America. You're really hitting into like a very niche kind of, which there's a lot of people who make $100,000 a year in America, but I promise you there's more people that don't.
I'm just going to, keep getting by. I'm going to coast by on the games that I already have or the hardware that I already have. That's true, but I think that it dodges out on a much larger issue, which is who these guys are locking out. Thinking about the new players, the new people, the young people, the students, the families that no longer can justify buying into this hobby anymore.
Yep.
I think we should probably talk about the people that they're locking out. I try to be a champion of fair pricing because honestly, it is just my biggest concern, not only as a content creator, but just as a person. I did not come from money, and no matter how much success I find or how old I get, I'm always going to be worried about how much something costs because it's just baked into my DNA at this point. Even more so in video games because they were so instrumental in keeping me out of trouble and helping me make friends and keeping me sane and most importantly, helping me save money. Like a lot of millennials, I graduated high school, immediately went to college for something that I was not cut out for, maxed out my credit cards, built up college debt, dropped out, and then found myself stuck working dead-end jobs, trying to survive, and just trying to figure out who the hell I even was. Years and years of living paycheck to paycheck, years of feeling stuck. And through all of that, the one thing that I always had was video games, the one affordable thing, the one thing that I could hold on to, the one escape that I had. And now I'm watching entire generations and entire households get locked out of it entirely. The first people getting hit by all of this are low-income households, which is exactly what is making this so disgusting to me. The people who need access to cheaper entertainment the most are the ones that are being cut off from it, especially depending on what kind of living conditions you grew up in.
This dude is literally just preaching, dude.
That would straight up tell you that if it wasn't for video games, they probably would have ended up on drugs or had a kid before they were 16.
Oh, I promise you for sure, if I didn't have video games to rely on, like back in the day, I would have definitely hung out with the wrong individuals, and I would for sure be a drug addict. I come from a long line of individuals. Almost all of my family are addicts in some way. They do some kind of drug. Almost all of them. It runs in the family. So I would for sure be a drug addict. And having that to look back on, the family lineage, and the fact that I just almost never went to hang out with friends because I was inside playing video games. I was inside playing Black Ops 2, Black Ops 1. I was spending whole summers on those games, and I would rather have done that than go hang out at parties and stuff like that. That is hands down the number one reason why I am straight edge. I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't do anything. Literally any drug at all. I don't smoke weed, I don't smoke cigarettes, I don't vape, nothing. Entirely straight edge. And I guarantee you it is almost entirely because of video games. If video games weren't around, if I was so poor that I couldn't have afforded video games, then I for sure would have eventually grown up to be like at least a pothead or something like that. I would for sure have some sort of addiction to replace my game addiction. You know, and a lot of people really don't realize that, like how much video games actually help in that aspect. Like I said, if I wasn't stuck inside playing Black Ops 2 or Advanced Warfare or whatever it was at the time, I would have for sure hung out with the wrong crowd. And I would have for sure got caught up in the wrong things. Probably would have been arrested at some point. Who fucking knows, you know? Who knows? Thankfully, that didn't happen because I was able to enjoy the experience of playing video games instead of being at a party where the police raid or, you know, being at a party where I get peer pressured to do fucking cocaine or something, you know? Who knows, man? And that is a drastic scenario, but that does really happen. You have to think about what would happen if those people who got addicted those nights weren't there and they were doing something else instead. It's a little bit of a reach, but at the same time, that is a very real scenario right there. Like I said, I come from a lineage of addicts, and if I didn't have video games to replace that addiction in me, what is ingrained in my DNA to be addicted to something, if I didn't have video games in place of that, then I would be an addict to something else. I would be a slave to something else.
It's not me being dramatic. That's just real life in this situation. Gen Z, Gen A, students, casual gamers, low-income households, all of these groups are just getting pushed further and further out of the market because either these guys just flat out don't have the money for this, or they can't justify spending that kind of money on something that they just don't have enough free time to be able to make worth it, especially at these prices. And man, that's just so sad to me because gaming has always had a relatively low barrier of entry. People like to shrug this entire thing off and pull the whole pull yourself up by your bootstraps routine or start parroting some TikTok life coach about how you should be spending all of your time making money. But people need joy in their lives or they start to lose.
Listen, making money is great and all, but like the resources that they give you to make money nowadays is not fun. And you have to have some sort of balance in your life where you balance fun and money. And the only way that a lot of people can have fun these days is if they have money. Okay, which is the same sort of situation that's going on here. This is the same, it boils down to the exact same complaint that we're having now. A lot of people find video games fun, but now they're getting too expensive to pay for it. So now all of a sudden, they don't have the money to pay for their fun. It costs money to have fun in almost every situation. I mean, think about it. You want to go bowling? You got to have money. You want to go get ice cream? You got to have money. You want to go you want to go drive around and see the landscapes? You got to have money for gas. You got to have a car. You have to have money to do things. In order to do the things that you find fun, you do have to have money. And there comes a point where things get so expensive that you can't do something. gas prices are on the rise right now, so I very rarely ever fucking leave the house because I almost can't afford to fill my gas tank. You know, it's getting to a point now where things are getting so out of hand that, like, I legitimately have to think about, like, you know, is it worth leaving the house right now to go get a gallon of milk, or should I just wait, you know, a couple more days? Should I wait to go and get those eggs from the store, or should I get them now? Is gas prices going to be worse 3 days from now, or is it going to be okay where it is now? You know, you have to think about these things as an individual like me who comes from fucking nothing and still has nothing.
Back when I was stuck working at a gas station, back when I had no money to go out, I couldn't go out to concerts or anything like that with my friends, and I felt like I was going nowhere, video games were still there for me. Instead of me blowing my money on drinking or some other dumb shit, I could buy 1 or 2 games a year, and I could stretch those games forever. Night after night, I'd be playing online hockey leagues with NHL, or I'd be talking shit in FPS lobbies with my friends, dumping what felt like hundreds of hours into an RPG. And honestly, if I didn't have that...
And those memories will be so much more fond to you than it would ever be. Like, I still remember all of the time that I spent on Black Ops 2 playing with, like, Shadow Prelate and, you know, all these other guys that I used to play with. Just really good friends of mine from way back in the day that I have very fond memories of that I haven't spoken to, you know, since fucking PlayStation 3. You know, but I still remember him. I still remember some of the conversations that we had. I still remember the maps and stuff that we played. Some of the games, some of the good moments. And I could have been somewhere else at the time. I really hope that these studios come to their senses with this, because this is not the move that they need to be making. And this is part of the reason why I'm making this video, along with all of the other people who are making videos like this, is to help spread awareness for it. Because obviously, if there's enough people that show an uprise to a disliking, a distaste, then the studios will at least think about the decision before they make it. Because usually they just make these changes and then it's just like, fuck it. They throw the papers get signed from one person to the other before, you know, the posts get made, and then the prices raise, etc. Eventually, hopefully, the topic itself will make it back to somebody who can at least sit there and think on it before they pull the trigger. That's basically what I'm trying to say.
I don't know where I would have ended up. I think what bothers me the most about all of this is that I already know where this all ends. I know exactly what their plan is. It's clear as day to see. They do not intend to leave these people behind. No. They intend to use them to squeeze more money out of them than they ever could have through ownership. Middle and lower income households and players are just going to get pushed into one lane. Mobile, subscriptions, cloud gaming, maybe even leasing consoles like PlayStation has already floated in the past. All of it
crazy,
sold as
by the way.
All of it sold as convenience. All of it's going to be predatory as hell. This is a direct attack on the middle and lower class. It's a way to keep people exactly where they are, stuck in a cycle of smaller payments while owning absolutely nothing at all, paying way more in the long run because the price is broken up just enough to feel manageable while they're able to keep them on the hook forever. And the worst part is that this already...
And that shit right there should be illegal, personally. If you're asking me, they should not be allowed to continuously charge you for a subscription. I think that there should be a certain point in every subscription's billing status and their fine print, something, I don't care what it is, from Netflix to Hulu to PlayStation Plus to fucking DoorDash, Red, whatever the fuck it is. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. This should be ingrained into every single one of those. But past a certain point, past a certain amount of money given to that subscription, you should have a lifetime subscription. Period. I don't care. Like, if you can consistently make like 4 years, 5 years worth of payments without missing a single one and never having your card bounce, etc., and never having to cancel your subscription, then you should be entitled to a lifetime subscription from that point forward, and you never have to pay for it again, everything included. Why is that not a thing? Because I promise you, after 5 years of me paying for YouTube Premium, which I do have, I promise you, over the years of me paying $20 a month for YouTube Premium, I've paid, I mean, let's see, let's do the math real fast. So $20 a month times 12, that's $240 a year that you pay for a subscription if you're paying $20. And then if you times that by 5, you've paid $1,200 over the course of 5 years to just that one subscription status. So you're going to sit there and tell me that your subscription status is not worth a total all-out purchase of $1,200. Really? Really? You're going to sit there and tell me as a corporation that the overall stuff that you provide on a monthly basis is not worth a full-time buyout of $1,200? I know that you're not. I know that you're going to sit there and say that it's not, because you can continue to make past $1,200 if I was to pay for another 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, etc. But that's not the point. The point is that you've been a valuable customer up to that point, and they should just, out of fucking goodwill, give you the ability to have an out of the contract and just give you what the fuck you've been paying for the past 5 years. You know, and it's the same sort of thing that happens with like cars and houses and shit. Like, yeah, you can have the payments paid off and everything, and you technically own it, but you don't technically own anything in America. They can always come and repossess it from you for some reason. If you don't pay taxes on your property or anything like that, they can come and take it from you. They can fucking, you know, kick you off your property, even though you've paid $200,000 or $300,000 for this house over the course of 50 fucking years. And just because you missed like 4 or 5 years worth of property tax payments, all of a sudden the government thinks that they can come to your fucking house and kick you out of it. And it's the same sort of thing that they're trying to do with the video games. They're trying to push you into doing subscriptions and etc. and just get you hooked on paying subscriptions for this, subscriptions for that. So that way you can afford to get into these $100+ game titles and actually play them, and then buy the in-game subscriptions and stuff. And then if your payments ever lapse, then you know, you want to get back in there because you've already wasted a bunch of money into the game, etc. That's their ultimate game plan. Okay, I know it sounds a little bit convoluted, a little bit complicated, especially with the way that I explain it, but that's objectively what they're after. It's scumbag shit to a T. Like, you cannot excuse it in any way, shape, or form. You are doing it as a corporation. You are doing it specifically to gain as much money as possible. From a business standpoint, it makes sense. But just from my perspective, that's a really shitty thing to do to someone, to specifically target them because they are a lower class individual, a lower income individual, and to try to get them on payments for something to where you can keep them hooked for longer and to make more money off of them than you would have like a higher class individual. That is probably the most textbook fucked up thing you could do.
Works, which is exactly why these guys are going to keep doing it. Earlier, I showed a graphic breaking down where the paid audience is actually coming from, and what stood out to me is how obvious this divide really is. Hardcore players are making up the biggest share of the AAA audience, but the smallest share of free-to-play. Meanwhile, core and casual players, the groups that are far more tied to lower and middle income brackets, are making up the majority of the free-to-play audience. And then I saw something much more uglier start to creep in. A whole category that doesn't register at all with hardcore players starts showing up for everyone else. Cards and casino games. 5th most for core gamers and 3rd most for casual gamers. So when these companies are trying to push out ownership out of reach, they're not just trying to change the way that people play. They are trying to train these people to operate within a worse ecosystem, more exploitative ones. The exact kind of ecosystems that are built to bleed the most vulnerable people dry. This is why I try to warn people. Luckily, there is a bright side to all of this. The more inaccessible, predatory, and disgusting that these people continue to make video games, well, the more they just keep shoving players into the arms of somebody else. And in doing that, not only are they making their own problems worse, but they're also strengthening the very competition that is eating their market share. Competition that respects their time a lot more, competition that respects these players' freedom a lot more. And right now, that means indie games and Valve. It wasn't all that long ago that we were talking about the pricing crash on Steam, where AAA games were not only losing market share, but getting outsold by indie games, but also that the average price of games being sold on the platform had fell with it. The median price had dropped from around $20 to just over $14. And that matters because, well, it shows that there's still an enormous demand for games. People have not lost interest in gaming. They're just being forced to be a lot smarter with their money. And when given the choice between bloated, overpriced slop and cheaper, better, more focused games, well, more and more people are starting to choose the latter. And Valve, well, they're going to take that a step further. Valve updated its regional pricing tools to help developers automate their pricing based on local purchasing power, not just flat currency conversion. And that's a huge difference. I don't think people really understand this, because instead of just charging somebody what the equivalent of $20 USD is in another currency and then pretending like that's somehow fair, instead, this system is trying to reflect what $20 actually means inside that economy. In some places, $20 is not casual spending. It is a big chunk of somebody's week. So Valve is effectively making it easier for developers to price their games in a way that real people can actually afford. Now, in combination with this, and honestly, the timing couldn't be any better, but we're probably about to see another wave of even stronger indie titles, because making them just got a hell of a lot more accessible.
I made a video on this recently.
Valve just signed a deal with the makers of Garry's Mod to build Sandbox, a version of Source 2 with simplified creation tools and features that are brought over from Unreal and Unity, while also still maintaining the kind of optimization and performance that Source is known for, making it easier to not only build great looking games, but also games for lower end hardware, which is a pretty big deal. An even bigger deal, though, is that it's all royalty free. And Gary Newman, the maker of Gary's Mod and Sandbox, explained exactly why when he said, Valve gave me a chance. I'm already rich. I don't want to fuck anyone over. I only want to give opportunities.
See, and this is why I like this individual. This is gay. This isn't Gabe, is it? No, this is Gary. This is the dude who made Gary's Mod right here who's saying this. This is a quote directly from the developer of Gary's Mod. And this is one of my favorite quotes of all time from somebody who has money. He says, I'm already rich. I don't want to fuck anyone over. If other CEOs around the globe would adapt that right there, I cannot begin to tell you how much better everything around for everyone would be. It would be an insane, drastic, overnight change. Even half the CEOs around the world could adopt that. That exact quote right there. I'm already rich. I don't want to fuck anyone over. It is insane how much that one sentence right there could change the world. That sentence is like the fucking Avatar. And he's, you know what? He's my hero, matter of fact. Not all heroes wear capes, but this motherfucker wears like 40 of them. So,
generation, like Valve did to me. We can all win together. Man, is that not a massive contrast from the rest of the industry? So now you're not only making it easier for smaller developers to make games of their own, make better games of their own, make more games for more people, avoid royalties, release their games directly onto Steam, but you're also letting these guys keep more of their revenue and also cut down on the kind of overhead that is constantly being shoved straight onto customers. And I think this goes to show just how unnecessary all of this is. While some of the biggest companies in the industry are trying to find more ways to make gaming more expensive, more restrictive, and more predatory, somebody else is out there trying to make games easier to make, easier to distribute, easier to make money off of, and easier for people to actually afford. That's the split.
Pray to God
one side
it
is
works.
building ladders, and the other side is trying to build toll booths. At some point, we got to stop pretending like this is just some market or inflation or it's just bad luck. This is a choice. And if this industry keeps choosing to push normal people out of gaming, well, then they're definitely going to deserve what comes next. I remember this one time where I was uninsured, no savings, and I chipped a tooth. And for basically an entire month, I had to eat Tylenol.
So I was a mechanic. There's a thing called a cheetah tank. It's basically a big shotgun tank, right, filled with fucking air, made out of steel. And popped the valve on that tank, 100 psi, blew it backwards, hit me right in the mouth. Chipped this front tooth all to shit, and it's still chipped to this day, and it still hurts to this day. It's been over a year since that happened. Can't go and get it fixed, though, because dental is like one of the most fucking expensive things in America, apparently, and I don't have that kind of money, so I just kind of deal with it.
Like it was candy until I could save up money, and then I finally got the crown, and when I did, I still had to make payments on it. But the entire time that I was going through all of that, the one thing that I had was that I had a crippling addiction to playing EA NHL, where I was doing these online hockey leagues on a website where you get with a group and you guys play through like whole tournament brackets and stuff. And while it was the only game that I had time for while I was working that much, it saved me a lot of money and it also saved me a lot of pain. It got me through it. I'll never forget that. And that's why I take all of this so seriously. This is why I want people to have fair access to entertainment, because I know how important it is. And also, going through everything, I also know how predatory the world has become over the years. I'm going to keep calling it out. I should keep calling it out. Anybody that has the opportunity should, every single chance they get. And, you know, when you're coming from low income, everything is chip damage. Everything is built against you.
Dude,
you know, I had
holy shit. When you come from low income, everything is chip damage. Wow. I genuinely don't think I've ever heard a more true analogy right there. That is, dude, and the same can be said in a different way. Basically, what he said is that when you come from low income, it's always something, which is also equally true. It really genuinely is. And it sucks, man. It really does.
I had to take a job where I worked across the country, working 14 to 16-hour days, 7 days a week, just to be able to crawl my way out over 4 years to find security. Then I stumbled into this job. Thank you, guys. I have no idea. Thank you, guys. But, you know, the entire time I just learned how everything is built against you. And here you now have these game companies that want to come in and they want to add another layer on top of that. No, don't let them do it. Walk away. Find something else. Find other games to support, find other platforms to support, figure out your hardware situation, buy a PC, buy a small PC, a tiny build. You don't need anything crazy, man. You know, even if it's an older gaming laptop, play indie games and do that instead. This is not going to work out for these guys. Abandoning the lower and middle class is essentially just going to dry up all of your earnings. If these guys actually think that they're actually going to be able to support everything using the upper class, it's not going to happen, just because by their nature, the upper class typically does not spend that much time playing these kind of games or spending money on this kind of entertainment. They have other forms of entertainment that they spend money on. And you're just not going to get the same level of income or the same level of loyalty that you would normally see from people that are somewhere in the middle.
Heavily agree.
These guys are just going to continue to lose money at an ever increasing rate, and it's going to get to the point where it's just going to collapse these companies entirely.
Let's
Maybe
hope.
that's what has to happen. Maybe that's the only way for any of this to be able to fix, is for some of these guys to just straight up go out of business, or to just have their stock cut in half, their staffs cut in half, and their presence cut in half, and then just lose to somebody else.
Which, by the way, when I agree with that, I don't want people to lose their jobs, okay? But at the same time, nothing would make me happier than to see a CEO who makes hundreds of millions of dollars a year to finally get that slap in the face that the decisions that they made were so fucking terrible that it was the direct result of their cash cow being corrupted. Nothing would make me happier. Now, that being said, too, that of course means that a lot of people are going to be laid off. And that is heavily unfortunate. And I would never wish that on anyone. That's terrible. I don't want that to happen to somebody. I really hope it never does. But of course it does happen every single day. And then the whole company pays for it. And that includes the hundreds, maybe even thousands of employees that work under that individual who made that decision. And unfortunately, they have to also pay the price, but not as big of a price. He doesn't pay as big of a price as they do, right? Because his money's already made. He can go. He can quit today and go and live La Vida Loca anywhere and everywhere he wants to. Whereas the person who is working, 3 or 4 steps below him now has to figure out what they're going to do for a job because their bills are coming up and they don't have the money to pay for them. Feeling the most amount of stress they've ever felt in their life. A lot of people are going to hit back at that and say that life isn't fair. That's just because you don't want it to be. It could be fair if everybody played a fair game, but not everybody plays a fair game. You see, that CEO who has $150 million in his bank doesn't have to continue playing the game. He's beat the fucking game already. Why is he still trying to make more money? He doesn't need it. That's the whole point of this shit, is if the greed would stop, there would be more for everyone else. It's fucking that simple. I don't know why people can't come to that conclusion. It's genuinely that easy. And you might hit back with, not everybody can be a millionaire, not everyone needs to be, but everyone should deserve the opportunity to be well off, to be stable, and to not have to fucking worry about their next paycheck. They might have to worry about like their 5th or 7th or 10th paycheck, months down the line, if something were to happen. But that's what stability is. They don't have to make millions. Not everybody has to be a millionaire. But to be stable is something that everybody wants and everybody deserves to have. Regardless of whether you think that's true or not, it's true. I could sit here and argue about it, but this video's already gone on for long enough. We're going to finish this video up right here. We only got 20 seconds left, so
I don't know. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did enjoy the video, like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, share it on social media. Follow me on Twitch. Follow me on Twitter. I always actually really like seeing you guys posting stuff on social media. So
I'm going to drop a subscribe right there to that dude. Just like he said, if you guys enjoyed this video, leave a like on it. Subscribe to the channel. If you leave a like on the video, that helps boost the video up into the feed, and it helps more people see the video. So for those of you who are watching and that have even watched to this point, obviously I did something right to gain your attention. So if you leave a like on the video, that'll get more attention, more eyes on this topic, and a lot more people will be able to put their opinions out there. And to those of you who are watching this video, I give you any and all right to use any of the things that I say. If you want to make a rebuttal video of any kind, do it. I'm not going to copyright claim it. I don't care. I don't care what your opinion is. You could sit there and make fun of how I look, and I genuinely wouldn't give a fuck. Okay? Just in some way, I would like more people to try to spread the word of what is going on in the gaming industry right now, because it is genuinely getting out of hand, and I would really appreciate it. Tell somebody about it. Vocalize your frustration. Tweet about it. Do whatever you need to do. Hopefully, they'll come to their senses and eventually realize that this is not the game plan that they want. And unfortunately, that's probably going to have to be through trial and error here. And let's just hope that it doesn't work out the way that they want. Otherwise, gaming is going to unfortunately change for the worst, I feel like. definitely moving forward. But anyways, guys, that's going to be the end of my video as well. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. See you later.